It is a new time, a new paradigm, and a new mind. It is dawning, and it is time for some new conversation to go with it. As our reality and our awareness are intrinsically linked to one another, interwoven. For our reality which we perceive and our inner realms of understanding, our inner standing, are in co-creative relationship, as are we to each other. I would like to offer to you today a new potential, a concept to explore and to ponder for your consideration. And my intention is to invoke and provoke new conversation, releasing new potentials for new energy to come in and inspire our minds, hearts, and lives towards authentic truth, wisdom, and peace. There has been much conversation about the role and impacts of patriarchy, and a great deal of conversation, attention, and energy that has been expended upon the effects of patriarchy upon our world and in our lives. While there are aspects of relevance to discussing patriarchy as a system, there is also much distortion present, which contributes to this subject being very volatile, triggering to men and women alike, and has been shown to me as overall harmful to our psyches and to our social dynamics. I'll explain my point of view on why and how. Patriarchy is a premise which assumes that the male-dominated system of global authority is the oppressive force that has affected populations of women, children, and the indigenous throughout the world for a very long time. Nearly all primary gods of all the major religions are authoritarian, father-type figures, or at least portrayed as masculine, and that has indeed been a factor of truth which is present. It is not, however, entirely the cause. Many indigenous peoples honor the mother. The priesthoods and priesthoods have existed aside one another in ancient peoples such as the Druids, the Greeks, and the Egyptians. But by far, for the majority of our current known history, the man has been holder of the greatest positions of authority in both matters of spirit and of governance. Indeed, the man's role in the social models of civilizations has been given greater authority and right than women for hundreds of years. Women have seen great improvements in greater protection, freedom, representation, and equality than they have for thousands of years. I say we must not delude ourselves into directing at the men, for it is the men who have also been used as pawns in the process, forgetting themselves, their true purpose, and their role in and to the community. On behalf of all brothers, I say it is not your fault, nor man's fault, and I pray we stop looking, stop accusing, and stop using patriarchy as a leverage point for our own freedom, as women and as a people. For brothers are tender, playful, supportive, and giving servants to the community when they are liberated and regarded as valuable and important too. I ask my sisters to be mindful not to look at and see your brothers with contempt or in fear, for they too have lost themselves in the illusion of the world. Let us bridge any divides. May we forgive ourselves and one another, that we may know true peace and true love. We must not fight this war anymore. It is not a fight, not our fight. So often, in so many relationships, all forms of relationship, we fall into a pattern of belief that there must be one that is in charge, or in the active leading role. Yet all equally desire to both follow and lead at different times and in different ways. We are involved in many relationships of authority in our everyday lives, whether that is because we have a parent, boss, teacher, or as a citizen to law enforcement. These relationships of authority are prevalent in our lives and both shape and determine how we act, operate, and exchange with one another, which can sometimes, even oftentimes, present our lives with countless challenges. When we are conditioned towards relationships of authority, we unconsciously act out and/or play out these relationship patterns and dynamics in our closest personal and intimate relationships without our awareness and to great dismay. Rather than projecting that authoritarian tendency onto men exclusively, may we recognize authoritarianism is also expressed by women. It is not reproductive gender specific. Our concepts about reproductive gender are the results and byproducts of cultural and social conditioning more than predetermined natural traits, and have been confused with corrupt social standards of preference and sexual orientation, as well as dominance authoritarianism standards for men and women in society. The man has been used to perpetuate and perpetrate just as much as women, men feeling targeted while not necessarily fully responsible, and women feeling justified in targeting in order to validate her own pain and disempowerment. We are all rising, none greater or less. rising out of sleep and our disillusionment. Let us let that rest and let that fight go now, that we may heal, that we may unify, love, and serve one another. I would like to suggest that we consider an alternative way of looking at the relationship of authority, which we are all working through and impacted by in our lives, as rather an issue of and a matter of hierarchy. The real issue we need to look at and see and address is our orientation towards hierarchy, and that such a possibility even exists. To believe in any capacity that there is that which is higher in value, meaning, significance, importance, and authority, while the rest or all else is lower, denoting less than in every instance, is disempowerment. Yes, the eagle flies higher in the skies than any other bird, as the whale dives deeper than any other aquatic mammal, and neither of these could be determined to be greater or lesser than the other. Only from the point of the observer and their biases of belief can that determination be made. The stars in the heavens are to us, down here on Earth's crust, high above us. Yet, from an observation point in space, we lose that place of reference, and it loses its value. Saying that the stars are greater and that we are lesser for being lower than them doesn't actually make any sense anymore. These natural reference points serve as anchors for a comprehension of our own personal capacities of perception. In our constructed social systems, authority is a predominant concept and core to their principles of existing and their very existence. We live under a false premise that men need an authority and governance, because otherwise we would be primitive wild animals and no one would be safe. This construct of hierarchy is present in all major religions, and that there is a greater than we, and that we are lesser. This influence is the primary factor in the creation of all social systems of all civilization throughout all time. And no civilized order has ever been able to accomplish equality, unification among people, or widespread peace. We could say hierarchy precedes these constructs and concepts of religion, as indeed even in indigenous cultures a patriarchy or matriarchy have existed, with roles of chiefs, elders, and councils. But they still tend to have more balance between masculine and feminine roles within the context of the whole community, and each have their complementary part to play, contributing to greater well-being. In our modern social systems, we have moved from kingships and rulers or monarchies, for the most part, into systems of governments and shared governance of various forms. Hierarchy is conditioned upon populations within these systems, beginning at young ages. Children are conditioned in the home by parents according to the hierarchy of authority that they are themselves aligned to and with. At 4 or 5, they are sent into school where the hierarchy of the system is exacted by teachers and administration, who are the hierarchical authority which children learn to obey. It continues on, further reinforced in the workplace as the bosses are the authority, and we become conditioned to the authority of the nation we belong to and the forces they employ with which to assert upon us our need for governance. And we agree, for if we do not, we will suffer penalty, and we only agree to avoid suffering penalty. This obedience is then justified, for indeed the attackers have been real, and the injuries and the punishments have been true. We all carry these memories, traumas, and wounds, which facilitate our obedience. We have been functioning within a power over dynamic relationship of authority for many, many, many generations. So much so that it has been nearly lost on us that this is going on. And I am offering to you that you may also consider the presence and prevalence without and also within us of the concept of hierarchy and belief in hierarchical authority and hierarchical structures of authority, hierarchical thinking and believing, and look at how this has served us and or doesn't serve us. For our belief that there is one that is in charge, the authority, the leader, and others merely followers, deeply impacts the way we are with one another in our relating, our intimacy, and how we operate and interact with our life. Knowing inherently that none wants nor likes to surrender their own authority, autonomy, or sovereignty to another, and all seek most authentically to be in relationship with one another, mutually beneficial relationship. A relationship without mutual benefit or reciprocity is a relationship of imbalance. One does not need to be in charge, yet we are programmed that there is, and so do this to one another in many ways. Which leads me back to the issue of patriarchy, and how easy it is for the feminine seeking her autonomy and sovereignty to not simply hold the masculine accountable for his actions and perceptions, but targeting, attacking, and reducing the masculine as the way to recover her own power. This is not to target women, either, as all members of our human family, feeling oppressed, may target and direct their frustration and anger towards this perceived male-dominated system of authority. I pray it is clear enough to see how this occurs. This is not isolating patriarchy. It is simply a call for observance as to how we relate. And what I personally feel is the primary issue we must face, which is power over dynamics, of which hierarchy as a system creates, reinforces, and allows for its existence and continuation. May we recognize our own authority over ourselves and claim sovereignty from this way of perceiving, believing, creating, and existing with one another and our world. May we disinvest any agreements we have made believing we must obey and answer to an other authority, or that we need an authority, or that any other holds authority over us. And I pray that we see how this harms us all, that we may begin dismantling this system and control structure which has dominated our lives, our planetary Mother Earth, and all of nature's creations. We are not higher or greater than any other that exists. We are capable of serving and improving the conditions of all and life as a whole for maximum collective well-being with our love. May we take this teaching and this awareness of hierarchy, hierarchical structures, hierarchical thinking, and hierarchical relationship into our awareness and our hearts as we observe all the ways it impacts and affects our personal well-being, lives, and world. We cannot change what we cannot see. And when we learn new ways of seeing, we can master new ways of being. Be curious, explore, release any attachments or expectations, justifications, and thinking we already know. Because knowing is half the battle. May it saturate in your awareness as you can see all the ways that hierarchy affects you, others, and the life we share. That it may spark conversation among us, and within the world. How we may bring about true peace for all earthkind. Let us visit this subject again, and so much more, on another morrow. Be well and enjoy in Lakech Olakin. Ara Viel. I love you.